Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
Since the beginning of time, people have argued about the existence of ghosts. They've been called variously wraiths, specters, phantoms, apparitions, shadows, or shades. But everyone agrees that if there are such things as ghosts, they are the souls of dead persons haunting living persons.
This is Malcolm Robinson and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you for that intro, Malcolm. Okay, today's show is what I'm calling a Halloween special, although it's going to be a little bit more serious than the fun and games of Halloween. We've actually got the Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue team on, which consists of Stephen Williams and Kayla Bayles. Now, Stephen is a former member of the Ghost Stalkers of West Tennessee from 2002 to 2006, and a former member of the Memphis Mid-South Ghost Hunters from 2006 to 2016. Currently, he directs Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, which he founded in October 2018. The other half of the team is Kayla Bayles, and she's a gifted clairvoyant and clairaudient spiritual rescue medium who has been experienced in spirit communication since childhood. Child spirits are particularly drawn to Kayla's youthful and compassionate energy, which is a tremendous asset in getting their attention and trust. Also joining me today is the lovely Juliette Gregson, making another return visit as co-host. So I'll introduce Juliette in a moment. But just before that, I'll just read out my email address in case you'd like to get in touch, making any comments or insults or whatever you want to do. It's David Young, 2QN, at yahoo.co.uk. I'll just read that again. It's David Young, 2QN, all one word, at yahoo.co.uk. Okay. Anyway, here's Juliette. Hello, Juliette.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. You've been working hard, I understand.
I have. I've only just finished work, actually.
I know. Well, we're recording this at a different time to usual, aren't we?
Yes, because I think we both thought it was 7 o'clock, sort of UK
time. What with the clock change and everything, I was actually confused. I thought it was a bit later. But anyway, tonight we're going to be talking to the Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, which sounds good. And it's Stephen Williams and Kayla Bayles, I think I'm not sure if it's Bayles or Bayles. We'll have to get that put right, won't we, to make sure we've...
Oh, yes.
I think it's Bayles, actually. But, I know Memphis pretty well. I've been there so many times. It's great. You know,
said, yeah.
So I'm hopeful it's sort of like where rock and roll was born, really, and everything. And well, not only rock and roll but jazz as well, I understand. So
it's definitely going to be interesting to hear what they've got to say.
Yeah. Right, okay, well what we'll do is we'll invite them on straight away, shall we? Unless you've got anything more to wrap it on about.
No, looking forward to this one.
Okay. Hello Stephen and Kayla, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having us.
It's great to talk to you. And you're the Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. Now it all sounds very thrilling to me because I know Memphis pretty well. I say pretty well, probably not as well as you do, but you know, I do know my way around it pretty well because I've been to Gregson. Everyone that knows me knows I'm a big Elvis fan, and I've been to Gregson several times, and like Sun Studios and everything. Hopefully you've got some Elvis Elvis stories or something for me.
Certainly do.
Great. Okay, well, Dominic, do you want to tell us a bit about what you actually do and what you get up to, and about your investigations, about your team and everything?
Well, Kayla and I have been working together a couple of years. Kayla's a clairvoyant and clairaudient rescue medium, and I'm a clairsentient investigator. I do have some of those other abilities too, but they're not my strong suits. So we just go into people's homes in this area when they're having spirit activity and disturbances, and we try to connect with those spirits and to do some counseling with them and to help them release and transition, which is helpful to the homeowners. All their troubles seem to go away pretty quickly after that, and their lives return to normal, and the spirits are able to continue their journey and have more experiences and a better awareness, I guess you'd say.
Certainly. Do you ever experience any poltergeist activity? Yes,
a couple of times. I've had objects thrown not at me, but across the room, and I've seen objects that have been moved and that type of thing. Wow.
Yes, I've never experienced that. I've already been on ghost hunts and things where you do things like table tipping and I'm not clairvoyant or anything like that, but I'm not sure about Juliette. You're a little bit clairvoyant, aren't you, Juliette?
I am and I'm not. It's a bit of a weird one when somebody sort of tries to pin me down.
You can't be both, can you?
No. It's weird because I had a very old medium friend, she's passed now, called Paula Paradema. And she says, you have talent, but certain things you just shouldn't do. And I said, well, like what? And the weird thing was I was actually round to buy an Aleister Crowley book. Please don't judge me for that. They are interesting reading. However, and she says, there's things that if you did and you sort of progressed and did that, it could be quite dangerous for you. And she wasn't the only one who's already said that. There have been other mediums that have said that to me. And I thought, well, I see things, I hear things, and you know when you sort of think, yes, I can do this, but there's another part of you that says, no, I can't. I've never been in a position where I can sort of do what you guys do, if that makes sense. Because I find, we may discuss this later on, there's an element of like, people go to a house and it's like, oh, and then they film and it's all about the YouTube stats and how much money they can make. I love hearing what you guys have just said about you're trying to help them transition. So to me, that's like, wow, thank you. Just, whatever we end up discussing, I just want to thank you both for doing that.
Yeah, because as I understand it, you do most things for free. Is that right, Stephen?
Do everything for free, yeah. I've never accepted any payment for anything.
Yeah. And that's kind of the way it should be. But, I mean, you must get do you not try to get your expenses covered and things like that sometimes?
Not at all.
Not at all.
We cover that ourselves.
Really?
It's just kind of service work for us. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a donation of our time and our gifts and everything, and we just feel like it's needed. And most people will go in and their focus is on the collection of evidence, and they're not really trying to affect a positive change. So the people that are experiencing these types of disturbances, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And many times they'll move from a property because they just can't tolerate it. It's
as bad as that, yeah. No, it's great to hear anyway. Let's hear a little bit from Kayla.
Hello.
Hello. Apparently you grew up with with a friend, a secret friend, is that right?
I did, two actually.
Ah, right. Is it something that your parents didn't know about?
So my family is originally from Louisiana, and my mother's side of the family, they're all very gifted or in touch in a sense.
Right.
And my mother, luckily, was always very encouraging and helped me understand some of the things I was experiencing. Now, she wasn't necessarily educated in a psychic or medium sense when it comes to terms and understanding a little more in depth, but for what she did understand, it really did help me. But the house I grew up in did have two entities. There was a little girl named Lillian who stayed in my room in the closet. That was her favorite place to be. And then there's an older gentleman named Carter my mom always referred to him as the man in the hallway, which would sound kind of scary as a child, but like, okay.
So, but was it scary to you?
Sometimes I would be a little anxious about it, but it was always very exciting to me. I was very curious. I've always been very curious and wanted to dabble or understand what was going on. And my mother actually helped a lot with me not being scared because I have 3 older sisters and 1 little sister. Now, the older ones, they would complain about someone being in the room scaring them. So my mom would go and be like, all right, well, I'm going to tell them to go away, but don't cry when you want them to come back. So it was very normalized in my house when it came with stuff like that. They would joke about it just randomly all the time.
So when did you actually realise it was actually people on the other side and not actually, I'm not trying, not real human beings, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, spiritual people. Because obviously they'd had their lives previously, but obviously, I think
it's a very interesting journey and experience because I've always been as clairaudient and clairvoyant as I am now. I just didn't realize that. I did not comprehend it at the time what I was experiencing. So it wasn't honestly until I was, say, 20, 21.
Right.
And when I started doing this work with Stephen is really when I started learning a lot of things. And I've been to metaphysical classes and other studies, and those have helped me along the way. But I really didn't realize all my psychic abilities and my communication skills until I had gone to a reunion and met Stephen.
Right. So when was that?
When was that, Stephen? When was the reunion?
That was about 2 years ago in September of 2018. And what occurred there was they had a public platform mediumship demonstration like they do in the spiritualist churches in England. Yeah. And we had a reunion. We have a teacher who gets all of her former students together once a year. And so Kayla had the opportunity to go before a large audience and do readings, and she'd never done that before.
Wow.
And she brought someone's aunt through and gave a message, and then she started talking about this little girl, and she started describing a little spirit girl who was around me and has been around me for years. She's actually a spirit rescue from St. Augustine, Florida, who will call, when we call upon her services, she will actually help us when we're doing spirit rescues involving children. But Kayla could see her, and she was very persistent, and I knew who she was describing, so later I went up and talked to Kayla about it, and at that point I decided to form this new group that we have. So this little girl's name is Alice, and she was kind of the catalyst for our new group coming to creation at that time, about 2 years ago.
Right, so it's just really you and Kayla in the team, is it?
We do have another friend. His name is Stevie Monty Smith. He's a very gifted young medium. He's been trained actually by Robert Brown, who's a medium in England. And he helps us occasionally. He's kind of like a guest investigator at this point. But he's helped out several times. So it's really, there was another young lady named Jennifer Brooks that helped us in the beginning, and she said to focus on other things, and she had to leave our group. So really right now it's Kayla and I are the two main components of the team, and then Stevie will sometimes help us out if we need some help. Right.
Now, I said earlier, I'm a big Elvis fan, so I know Memphis pretty well, and as I say, I don't know if you've got any Elvis stories for us or any other, because I know, really it's the birth of rock and roll and really jazz, wasn't it, Memphis? Really, in the early days. So,
well, you said you've been to Gregson, correct?
Oh, several times, yeah. I've seen it change over the years. They have different sort of displays all the time. Every time I go, it's something different.
So I have a medium friend named Linda from Jacksonville, Florida.
Right.
She was actually involved in that spirit rescue of Alice back in 2007. That's how I met her.
Right.
And she kind of introduced me to the concept of spirit rescue, and she's probably the world's biggest Elvis fan. And so when she came to me,
no, she can't be. I am.
well, maybe you guys are tied up. I don't know, but she is fanatic, actually. So she had never been to Graceland, oddly enough. So when she came to Memphis, I took her and another medium friend of mine, and we went into the house. And that first room to the right, when you walk up the steps and into the foyer, there's a room to the right that has a big white piano.
Yeah, I know.
And at that time, I guess it's still like that.
It's still at the back, yeah. There's like a separate alcove part with the white piano, yeah.
Right. So I was standing and kind of leaning against the door there, and my friend Linda was next to me, and the other lady was beside her. And at one point, after we stepped in there, Linda kind of collapsed into me, and I asked her, "What's wrong? You know, what's going on?" And she said, "Well, he came up behind me and kissed me on the neck." So she's clairvoyant, and she could see him, and so he came up and gave her a really friendly greeting. And the other medium also confirmed that he was there. I could feel his energy because I'm clairsentient. So, yeah, so she got to meet her idol.
So he still visits there then on occasion?
Yeah, I think he's there, you know, and the way that she described him, both of them described him independently, described his appearance was he looked like he was in his absolute prime, maybe in his mid-20s, late 20s, just a beautiful man like he was at that time. And, so I guess, you know, I've always heard that spirits tend to present themselves in their prime, so he certainly did that day.
Yeah. Well, I know Lisa Marie spends a lot of time there, so perhaps he's there watching over her, and, you know, I don't know.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, that was very interesting. What about Sun Records, the Sun Studios? Have you ever visited there and got any experiences?
Have you, Kayla?
Been to Sun Studios?
Yeah, on Union Avenue.
I've actually never been. I plan to go sometime, though.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, you need to. It's a great tour.
I've never been there, but catty corner to Sun Studios, there was a business there at one point called the Quetzal Cafe. And this was before I met Kayla. I was with a group called the Memphis Mid-South Ghost Hunters at that time, and we got invited down there because there was a report that they would often see this young guy at the end of the bar down where the ladies tended to congregate, and this guy was described as wearing like a rolled up white t-shirt and blue jeans and with his hair slicked back. So I don't know if that was Elvis or who it was, but we did go down there, and that spirit person interacted with us quite often. He would make equipment respond to questions and that kind of thing. And he definitely liked the women, because I took a group in there one time. I was doing workshops, and so there was this really pretty lady that was in our group, and her EMF meter was just going crazy. Nobody else in the group was lighting up. And I said, well, let's just test this out. And I asked her to give it to me. As soon as she handed it off to me, it just went dead. And then when I handed it back to her, it went crazy again. So, yeah. I don't know if that was Elvis or one of his cohorts or somebody from that era, but...
Yeah, we had a few buddies around, and also, being the birth of rock and roll, you had people like Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis, Cole Perkins, and quite a few others as well. Right. But, it was interesting. There's also you got B.B. King's play. I don't know, on Bill Street, isn't it? Have you ever been in that?
Yep. As a matter of fact, I've been there a lot recently.
You have?
You work there now, don't you?
King? Yes, I do. I actually been working down there, and I love it there.
Oh, right. I've never been in. I've only been on the outside. I've never been inside.
Oh, you should come in. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, fun. Maybe next time, if I manage to get back to Memphis again, I will go in there. But so I've eaten on several of the eating places where you get the big burgers and chip and the fries and everything on Union Avenue. On Bill Street. There's a couple of really nice places there. Anyway, we're not here to talk about food, are we? But sorry, go on.
We've done quite a few investigations in that area down on South Main Street. We did a bar down there called the Green Beetle. And that was actually, we had a TV crew with us for that one, and we had some things happen. And then there's another place called Ernestine and Hazel's, which is an old brothel turned into a kind of a hamburger joint now. And they have a jukebox that will, if you're talking about a certain subject, the jukebox will come on by itself. I've experienced it, and it will, it's kind of a comment on what you're talking about. So there's a very playful spirit down there.
Really?
That likes to do that type of, activity, yeah.
Because it's also the cradle of the Civil War, isn't it, Memphis? Do you ever experience, anything from the Civil War?
I've been in a hotel that was used for a Civil War hospital during that time era, and also I think they also used it during the 1878 yellow fever epidemic. And there was a lot of activity. We got called to an apartment down there. This again was before I started working with Kayla, but there was a spirit in there, a female spirit that was causing a lot of activity. And so, yeah, I mean, all of downtown Memphis, Kayla will concur with me, I'm sure. Whenever we go into that area for any reason, we're always kind of overwhelmed by the energy there. It's quite prevalent.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, isn't there? Like even back to like the slave days, and what about there was the Sultana sunk in the river, didn't it? There in the Mississippi during the Civil War. I don't know if you've ever sort of investigated that or experienced anything from that.
Yeah, you're talking about the steamboat accident?
Yeah, it blew up, didn't it? Apparently, I was thinking, it overloaded or something, didn't it?
Yeah, I've talked to someone who actually located the remains of that. It's actually buried under a cotton field over on the Arkansas side now. The river's changed course, a little bit here and there over the years, but I've never been able to quite pinpoint where that is. I would like to go over there maybe sometime, take our team over there and see if we can connect with anyone.
Yeah, sure.
That sounds fun. Let's do that.
Yeah. So you
Can I interject?
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just thinking, this is just a bit of a left field comment. I don't know if you guys know anybody who've got drones, or into archaeology. I was just thinking if you're trying to locate something, it might be worth going down that avenue, maybe?
Right, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the coming technology for it, doesn't it? All that. It seems to be going on a lot now, doesn't it? I don't know what the legalities of it is, but...
With drones, it's probably similar to the States. You've got, if you're doing it commercially, you've got to have a license. That does cost money.
Yeah.
But there are people there that, they've got some fantastic... I've got a drone myself, to be honest.
Well, you do drone on a bit sometimes, I know.
I know, yeah. I've learnt all I knew off you, David.
Well, we're very careful never to trespass or anything. Always get permission to go on the property. In fact, we have a legal permission form that we use as electronic thing, and we'll never even set foot in anyone's home unless we have, their signature on that.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will, if they hear of some location that's allegedly haunted, they will just, trespass and go into that area, and that causes a lot of problems for everyone. So we're real careful about that. Real respectful of other people's property.
Of course, yeah. Well, and you want to keep a good name for your service, don't you? Really. That's what would you say was your most interesting event?
Kayla, talk about that.
Our most interesting event? Oh man, we've had so many different things. Which one do you want me to start with?
Well, you can tell us about them all. Which one do you feel is was the most interesting?
One of the most interesting ones was, I forget the location of this house because I work so much with the spirits that usually that's who and what I remember. But I remember this gentleman. He's very old Western. And he loved his liquor, and I was talking to him, and his energy, it made me feel dizzy and kind of lightheaded. You could tell that he was a heavy drinker and stuff, and I was talking to him, and we're talking about crossing him over, and he said, well, is there a beer in heaven? And Jennifer, the other girl that has worked with us, she's like, it's an endless tap, and then he was going how if he could bring his horse and stuff. So he is quite the character. But then there's this younger boy in one of the rooms but I could feel that his mother or guardian was around him, and it was interesting because this younger entity, he was alone. He had this guardian with him, but she was also a medium or psychic in her living life, but didn't necessarily learn. And she had talked to me some when I was helping him, that she knew that she was going to be around him and try and help him, but she didn't necessarily know what she was doing. So it was just interesting for me as a psychic and medium to see an entity that's what we would call like earthbound and communicate with me like that and not realize, all that they are, that they can do. That was one of the very, most interesting investigations for me, just because of that experience.
Right. Do you ever find do you get scared at any investigations at all? Do you get anyone that's sort of quite nasty?
There's definitely there's this one house we went to, and this is, Steven, remember the entity where I took that dagger or that knife out of his chest?
Right, yes.
So this house had some things going on in it, but the energy around this guy, he had passed away from a traumatic event. Someone, murdered him and attacked him. So it was like this big black blob, like orb atmosphere around him, and it makes me feel very uncomfortable, very uneasy. I wouldn't necessarily say scared. I guess there's some fear there, but it's not to the point where it makes me want to run from it. It's just extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Is usually my experience. But I'm always, there's that curious side of me that always wants to kind of poke and prod at it and figure out, well, what's going to happen next, What's going on here? Yeah. But most of the time, it's mostly exciting to me and just very interesting because I'm curious above all else.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you probably know deep down that it can't really hurt you, can you? Unless you sort of allow it to.
Exactly. Yeah.
I suppose it depends how much you open up to something. I mean, is it possible to get possessed?
I've worked with people who claim to have been possessed. To me, it's not a total control type thing. They tend to seem to be overshadowed by the spirit's energy. Maybe they become sluggish, or many times I've worked with families where the wife will contact us and say, my husband has just had a total change of personality since we moved into this house. He used to be so sweet and kind. And now just any little thing will set him off, and he's very angry all the time. So that to me is more of an overshadowing type thing. I think the only way that someone could become possessed, if there is such a thing, I've never witnessed it or experienced it, is if they become so spiritually weakened and they actually invite that in. They want that. Yeah. I did work with a lady in Arkansas who neglected to tell me that she had an exorcism performed on her, and her overshadowing came through the use of a Ouija board, which is, what is that? A piece of cardboard and plastic planchette, but it's the intent that's put behind the use of it. And her intent was to, she started dreaming about this gentleman. He was, really was a gentleman. He presented himself that way. He was a Civil War soldier. And so he started coming through stronger and stronger, really sweet and kind in the beginning, and then she claimed he was assaulting her, towards the end of this experience and everything. And I did go over there and spend the night in that house. I did witness any of the things that she claimed, the events of things being tossed and that type of thing. But there's been just rare instances of that type of thing, but I've never seen a complete possession.
Right, yeah. Well, if anyone sort of listening that doesn't sort of understand the geography of where Memphis is, you got the Mississippi, and Arkansas is across the river, isn't it, Steve?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just for everyone that might not realise that Arkansas is quite near to where Memphis is.
Thank you.
We're actually in the southwest corner of Tennessee, so right below us, 15 minutes from us is Mississippi, which has a lot of history of the, blues musicians and of course Civil War activity occurred all over this area. And then right across the river is Arkansas. So we we serve those areas, and also we will go into Kentucky and Missouri and Alabama and Louisiana, just not very far into those states, but we do occasionally get some requests for help from those people too.
Sure, yeah. I mean, also, back to Elvis again. If you go further south, you can go to Tupelo, can't you? I don't know if you've ever done that. Yep.
Right.
Have you ever been to his birthplace?
I haven't, no. We did go to a house early on when I've been doing this for 18 years, so I've been with a couple other groups before this. And in my early days, we got called to a house that was bordering that would be the eastern side of Graceland. And the lady that owned the house was one of the fan club presidents.
Right.
And apparently Elvis's mother made appearances in that house, and we actually recorded female voice while we were in there.
Oh, right.
So I think his influence, spread throughout that whole area around Graceland. And there's been a lot of sightings. I've talked to a lot of people that have had different experiences there.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly changed from the first time I went there. It's kind of it's built up almost like a Disney World now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I first went there, it was just like small shops and things, but else seem to have all been bought up or disappeared into the big conglomerate. But it's a shame in some ways, but I suppose it just shows how sort of popular it still is. With thousands of people go there every year. But right, I don't know, Juliette, you got something to say? Pull me out of this for a minute.
Tra-la-la-la-la. I was going to actually talk about Elvis.
Oh,
Elvis, absolutely fantastic. I've never been. The only place I've been when I visited the States was New York, which was fantastic. Oddly enough, I went the year before 9/11, and on the last day, I actually went up the Twin Towers, which was absolutely bizarre. Wonderful place. I was wondering, this is more from my sort of point of history. Elvis, very famous. Have you found that groups have actually tried to capitalise in a monetary way on this? I really admire you two, just for doing things, which is the best way. Have you found perhaps some groups have just tried to make money out of it? Does that annoy you? What do you think?
Kayla?
I don't know anyone personally in this area that's like that. That I can think of. I mean, I'm not a big fan of a lot of the ghost shows where they go in and antagonize entities and don't really help anyone. I understand the market for that and the entertainment there, but it's like, with my gifts and my experience, I see them as people,
Yeah.
So it kind of hurts me to see that. I never really got into those shows or watched them when I was younger. A lot of people make references to those shows or talk about it to me because they're like, oh, you're a medium and you speak with entities and stuff. I'm like, listen about those guys are me.
Yeah. They kind of sensationalise it a little bit, don't they? Or quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Do you feel that they give I'm not going to say business, but the whole thing a bad name?
I've been in a couple of situations where well-known haunted establishments did try to capitalize on that. And there was a place I went to years ago down in Alabama. It was an inn. And I actually invited a group of friends down there for a weekend. And the people there were very protective of their spirits. So when we went through and started trying to, help some of these spirits transition, release, the lady came and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're just trying to help them." And she said, "We don't want them to go." And the reason she didn't want them to go is because it would have hurt her bottom line. They had that reputation of being haunted, which drew guests there. And so we went back anyway later that night and did a little work. But because, it's more important. This is really kind of sacred work to us. That's why we never charge for any of it. And we just want to, utilize the gifts that we've been blessed to have to try to help these people get to where they need to be, because they really are stuck and they really don't know what to do many times.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would think that they are in quite a bad mental turmoil, actually, if they don't know where they are like that.
Right.
I mean,
we had a little girl we found in a closet one time in a a house in Midtown Memphis. Remember that, Kayla? And she was, all she would say is, the house is on fire.
Right.
House is on fire. So we're energy channels, and we were able to kind of project some, positive energy to her to where she was able to kind of break out of that mental fog and that loop that she was stuck in.
Even there's one entity I came across. He was actually from the Europe area. I have no idea how he floated or ended up over here, but he was a piano player, and he had amnesia though, and he didn't realize where he was or what was happening or that he had even passed. And then even with that guy that I helped take that dagger out of, he just had so much betrayal and hurt and pain that was just there that he needed help releasing, and sometimes that's all they need.
Wow.
What was interesting about the guy with the dagger, he was a young guy, and if you had gone into that room, if you were at all sensitive, most people would have interpreted that as malevolent energy or threatening, but it was really just anguish, and he was so disturbed by what had happened to him, and Kayla was just intuitively guided to reach out, and of course it was all metaphysical type stuff, and just pull that dagger out of what he perceived to be in his chest. And as soon as she did that, his whole demeanor changed, and he lightened, his energy lightened up, and we were able to work with him at that point.
Wow.
But most people would have turned and run away from that, or started shouting at the person, or that type of thing.
That reminds me of this other I'm trying to remember which house this was, but there's an entity, and this woman had been in an accident, but she didn't separate, I guess, her entity's image from her accident. So she did, if a child saw her, she would look scary, but she wasn't trying to be scary, and she wasn't demonic or anything like that. She just appeared scary because she still had her wounds to whatever happened to her. I think this is the woman that someone threw boiling water on her, or something after her skin, acid or something like that, because I remember the way her wounds looked on her face, and I knew that. I think there might have been children in this home that we investigated, and I think one of them might have seen her and been scared, but she wasn't mean by any terms. She was just wounded.
Right. Her mental image of herself was her last memory. And there was a very intuitive young girl in this family, and she had seen this woman several times, and the woman was actually coming to her to try to get help because she knew the child was intuitive and could see her, but she didn't realize how much she was frightening the little girl.
Wow.
So we reminded her of what she looked like. We talked with her and counseled her, and that's always our job, is to hear their story and to try to find out what's disturbing them. And once we realized what had happened to her, and we were able to take her thoughts and her mind off of that, she could remember what she looked like before, and we were able to help her transition at that point.
What are your views?
So there's a lot of psychology.
Sorry, what are your views on reincarnation? Do you believe it happens?
Kayla?
I do personally, yeah, definitely. I feel like I personally had visions of other lives that I've lived and stuff. I believe that, we come back and we have a choice to come back and things as such. I'll probably come back again to help or do what I can where I can. I mean, this isn't the first time I've decided to do this. I feel like a lot of reincarnation too goes along with your freedom of will, because from my experience and what I've seen, you never lose your free will. That is something that's very much respected within the world of energy and on the other side. But I've read about the Akashic records. I don't know if you've ever heard about that, like the soul's history and stuff like that in other lives. Almost like a soul's diary, the Akashic records, like other lives you've lived. So I definitely resonate with that stuff personally. I believe in it. I'm here for it.
I was just saying, being a medium or clairvoyant as you are, do you not actually get, it's hard to describe it, do you not actually get feelings of your previous lives?
You know, sometimes I feel like I've definitely had people from my other lives visit me, like in spirit. Because even though in my body and my mind, if I don't remember them from this life physically, a part of my soul does. And they never seem like strangers to me. I'm not necessarily sure how I know them, but I knew that I've been in a life with them before. But there are some things I remember, or sometimes I have visions of my other lives, you know. I believe in every life we come in, we're here to learn something and to carry it into our next life. So I think and I feel that when I have these visions and everything, I'm remembering things that I made it a means to learn in my other lives to bring into this one.
Yeah. I must admit, I've experienced that when you actually meet someone, you think, I kind of know you already, but or you become close quite quickly, don't you? And I suppose that could be some sort of a, from past lives. I don't know.
Definitely, at times I've met people in the physical world that I might have had another life with in somewhere other part of the world or even dimension or reality. I'm not putting anything past me at this point. You know, I talk to entities, so I can't really say, I don't know if that exists.
Yeah. What about you, Stephen? What's your take on reincarnation? Sorry, Juliette, you can have a go in a minute.
Yeah, I agree. I've had similar experiences where I've met people and it was just like I've known them forever and that type of thing. And our teacher is a well-known trance medium. Her name is Ellie Kristinsky, and she's the one that puts together those reunions of her students and everything. But she is also able to access the Akashic records. So I've had reading with her, and I've had many lifetimes according to her reading. And a lot of the places she talks about when I've traveled around the world felt really familiar to me, like Edinburgh, and also I've been in Ukraine at different times, and those areas felt just strangely familiar to me when I was there.
Wow.
And she also says that we travel in soul groups, and so these soul groups tend to reincarnate together at different times, and roles are reversed, to help you learn whatever life lesson you come in to learn, during this particular lifetime. So maybe Kayla and I knew each other in a different lifetime, or maybe we were brothers or sisters, in another lifetime in a different part of the world or whatever, a different time period.
Sure.
So you just meet those people, and it's just a familiarity that is hard to, pass by.
Yeah. Do you think our lives are actually preconceived? Like they're going to, that there's a path that we are put onto?
I don't. I think it's all free will.
I believe that there is some sort of blueprint or structure, but the best part of it is that we choose how we get to the end goal, in a sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think there's an end point that you get to. It's just how you get.
I feel like there's an ultimate goal, but we get to decide how we paint and pave the road the rest of the way.
Yeah, yeah, through your decisions that you make, how to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, free will is so important, but I agree. I think we might choose our destination and, the time period we want to come into, and maybe our gender or whatever, or race and that type of thing, so that we can have experiences that we haven't had before.
Yeah, sure.
Different parts of the world or different cultures and that type of thing. But it all boils down to lessons that you want to, to overcome different things that you struggle with or whatever, and it's all about enlightenment, in my estimation, and awareness, increasing your awareness. So that, again, is what we try to help the spirits that we work with. We try to help them raise their vibration or their awareness to where they're able to see what's ahead of them.
Absolutely.
And rather than stay stuck here in this kind of mundane existence, there's so much more for them.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Juliette, you wanted to have a go about something, didn't you?
No, it was just absolutely fascinating listening to you both. Talking about sort of reincarnation, I just hazarded a thought, and I thought, must ask this to you both. Hypnotism, hypnotic regression. What do you think, and have either of you ever had that done?
I always very curious, but I've never done anything like that. I've always been very curious, and with my experiences and the way, like, with the group meditations and stuff I've done, I'm kind of like, that would make me a little nervous, because I feel like it would work really well, but that's another reason why it's so exciting.
There is a reason I'm asking that, but I shall let on when you've both explained.
Yeah, I've experienced that in our reunions with our teacher. We've had people that kind of specialize in regressions, and I've seen it done, and I've heard people talk about their life experiences and see that type of thing. It's not. I don't think it's as much hypnosis as it is just really, really deep relaxation type techniques. Mm-hmm. Where they're able to really focus and let those memories flood up. And in the early days, I worked with a gentleman who was very intuitive, and he actually went into hypnosis and was trained in that. And I've often thought maybe I need to go and have him do that for me, but I haven't done it at this point. So
what was this you were going to tell us, Juliette?
No, there was a good reason I was asking that. Many, many, many years ago, my dad would go out and he used to play the organ. And I was like, Dad, where'd you go? And he used to work for a hypnotist. And he was called Richard Lord Payne. If you were to Google him, Pathé Newsreel, Richard Lord Payne, he's actually on there from 1949. And he looks like one of those you see in the films. Tall, piercing eyes, goatee beard. And he was like that in real life as well. The upshot of that was he taught my dad, he taught my mum, he taught me. And it's one of those when, you sort of said, oh, what can you do? I sometimes forget I can do it. So it's one of those, I agree with you, there's part of it, if you put somebody under it, it's intuition from the person, but some of it, you could get somebody and they speak a different language. Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting subject that I think within this community, it's not been thoroughly explored, hence I brought it up. Yeah. Because everybody's like, oh, we've got the equipment, oh, do you use a camera, do you do this, do you do that, or do you do it the old-fashioned way? To me, it's just something different that could be done. So I just wanted to throw that in the mix, basically, and sort of briefly explain my connection to it. It's an interesting subject, put it that way.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing, by the way. Great.
All right. It's if you ever see a film or you see something on telly and it's like, put your hands together and then it cuts away. The reason they do that, some people are quite not subjective, easily influenced, shall we say. Mm-hmm. You can look at an audience and you can sort of look at people and think, right, you could have 100 people, but you get 5. To be honest, all you need is one person for a show. Mm-hmm. It's weird. People watching as well. I will never do that, and you're asleep. It is fascinating, and I've had it done to me, so it's not like I'm sort of going, yeah. And then it's like, put your hands together, you're asleep. To me, it always sounds better coming from a male. I know that sounds probably slightly sexist, but sometimes a female, then again, I don't know, I think I sound like a bloke, so it works. But I've seen people trying to sort of do their hands together and it's like, what have you done? I put glue on them. No. But when I was a teenager, I was quite naughty with it. I remember hypnotising a friend. We used to work at a ice show, and I hypnotised her and then she sort of came out of the trance and it was like, so what do you think of the show? Everybody's naked. Are they? Are you sure?
Oh no.
Or change the name, or if there were, but then again you can use it for good. If you're trying to get rid of some negative energy, if you're trying to sort of dig for some history that you just can't find anywhere else, or you're trying to stop somebody smoking. Right. Silly things like that. There are good things that can be done with it.
Oh, all sorts of things nowadays, isn't it? People use it for.
Oh God, grief, yeah. But if it's not done correctly.
She used it to stop smoking. She said it helped a lot, actually, for her.
But you can sort of talk about neuro-linguistic programming, you can tie in with meditation. To me, it's another tool in the bag. I'll shut up now.
Yep, I love it. I think it's so interesting because right before our Skype call, I was actually on YouTube and I was looking at some I like to, I am super interested in the psyche and psychology and, neurology and all that stuff. And I was watching videos on stuff kind of similar to what you're talking about. So I was like, she would bring this up. This is amazing.
Well, find me on social media later. We can hook up and I can send you a link to the video you took. Honestly, because when my father and I found it, and he was like, look, and he got all excited, and I was like, oh my God, that's what he looked like when he was younger. But it was part of the magic circle as well, you see, which was even more, and I was sort of reading, and then it was just fascinating, some of the backstory. He like hypnotised a football team, like you do. But it was just weird. The more I read, I was like, oh my goodness. See, I knew him when he was sort of in his 70s.
Maybe I can learn and I can do hypnosis on entities and help them cross over. That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
it's something I think
that would be a new angle, wouldn't it?
This is what I mean. I think possibly, if, like I said, if you want to sort of discuss it, I don't have a problem with it. I can sort of throw it and go, look, and you can go, oh, that's interesting.
It's interesting because we say that we're like social services for entities, you know, because we have to counsel them and talk to them and, you know, help them. Because it's all about, you know, their spiritual well-being and their psyche, because that's what they are at that point.
Hey, if it helps you at the end of the day, I'll help anybody, you know, that's what I do. That's what myself and David do. We just try and educate. Yeah.
We get education, obviously speaking to people like you, this is why I do this, because I learn a little bit every show, you know, from people. And, yeah, I think we're all on this road of trying to learn from each other, you know. Juliette, on your investigations, do you use any instruments, and or do you not need them because of your capabilities?
Yeah, I used to carry a lot of equipment in the early days, for maybe the first 4 or 5 years when I was investigating, before my clairsentience kind of kicked in. But these days I only take an audio recorder. I'll turn that on as we walk into the residence or business, just to document everything.
Right.
And then I do carry a little EMF meter with me. And a lot of times I will give that to the client because that makes them feel a little bit more involved.
Sure.
And, they love that. You know, they've seen all the TV shows, so.
And they can see see some sort of result, I suppose, you know, if it lights up.
And, you know, I've also discovered that a lot of times entities will choose to be very selective about who they'll interact with. So if they've had experience, you know, interacting with the homeowner, it makes more sense to allow the homeowner to carry that piece of equipment. But typically what I use that for is we will go in and check the wiring in a location, because that can affect psychological, you know, perceptions.
Sure.
If the wiring's off, or if there's excessive EMF fields in the location. And also we went into a house, this was very interesting. This is when Jennifer was working with us. We went to this lady's house, and typically when we walk into a place, immediately we connect with spirits if there's anyone there, and we get a lot of information that starts just flooding in. And we were all just kind of like walked into a fog. And actually, I'm sure Kayla will talk about this in a minute. It was actually disturbing. I mean, it was kind of hurt. It kind of hurt in a sense. It was painful. I was going to
say it was very heavy, like static, all in my brain.
Right.
All the frequencies.
And we couldn't distinguish. You know, we could tell there was someone there, but it was like they were very far off, and we just weren't able to make a really strong connection. And what was going on was this lady's property backed up to these high voltage transmission lines that literally ran across her backyard, the way the lines ran. And I don't think I've ever been in a house where the entire house was bathed in such an excessive EMF field. And this lady unfortunately developed some health issues because of that. And but we called our guides in. You know, our guides are always available to help us and work with us, and we asked them to make some adjustments. And as soon as they did that, these are our spirit guides, we were able to start making some stronger connections. But that was a really weird situation. And if I hadn't had that EMF meter with me to check that, I would not really have understood what was going on.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't sound like a very healthy place to be living, doesn't it? With all that EMF around. I mean, we're surrounded with Wi-Fi and everything as it is with everything.
Yeah. But with the audio recordings, what I found is when I started working with mediums, you know, specifically right around 2007, I used to record a lot of EVPs, a lot of spirit voices on audio recordings. And when I started working with mediums, that all basically dried up. And I theorized the reason for that is, would they prefer to talk to a piece of equipment or a machine or expend the energy to put a voice on an audio or video recorder when there's a person there that can actually hear their thoughts in real time and have a dialogue with them? So that all changed dramatically at that point.
So, they said, when you go down from Memphis, have you been down to Nashville at all? Because that's another interesting old town, or city, I should say.
I've worked a couple of cases around Nashville, but not actually right in the city. We were contacted by a young gentleman who wanted us to come to a building there in downtown Nashville. This is when Kayla and I first got together to do this work, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to provide the permission that we require. And apparently what was going on was this was a building that was being used for satanic worship in the basement.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so there were a lot of activity and things going on, and probably could have really benefited from a clearing. We do vibrational clearings, but since he was not able to provide the permission, I think it was just someone who worked there or knew of it and wanted us to come in and check it out. But again, we don't set foot on anybody's property without legal permission.
No, I just wonder if because it was a very, like Tennessee in that area is a very music orientated. Do you get much, do you pick up much from dead musicians, let's say? apart from Elvis, I mean, there's loads of others, aren't there?
Not personally. Most of our work is private homes. So, people know from our testimonials on our website that we're able to do this work and do it effectively and quickly. A lot of people go into a house and they'll spend 3 or 4 hours, sometimes into the wee hours of the night, doing these investigations. They'll bring in tons of equipment. The family's displaced or the children have to be somewhere overnight. Typically, we can go in and do our work within an hour or two at the most, depending on the side of the house. And so we go in from 7 to 9, typically on a Friday night or a Sunday night, and we ask the children to be out of the house because you never know what's going to happen. But their kids are back in by 9 o'clock and ready for bed and all that. So we don't. It doesn't take that long if you have the abilities where you can actually get in and find out what's going on and to affect that positive change that everybody wants, not only the homeowners but the spirits too.
Sure, yeah. What's your opinion of Ouija boards or spirit boards?
I don't like them. They freak me out.
Same here! Yay!
So, there are people I know that still use it. Most of the people I know now don't use things like that because a lot of us are mediums. I am the Ouija board or spirit box. I don't need that to communicate with them. And the reason why I don't like Ouija boards, now the history of Ouija boards, they came out around, I think, World War II or one of those. They used it to get money into market, because people wanted to talk to their loved ones or know what was going on. But what they didn't realize is that they did create a device with the intention to open up a connection to whatever's on the other side. And that's what's dangerous about it. You're talking to whoever and whatever and you don't know their intention. And if you're not educated within these things, it can be dangerous or scary.
Yeah, sure.
Stephen actually remembers we did a house investigation in Mississippi, and the owner had, during the investigation, after a little bit, had opened up to us and said that she used a Ouija board one time when she was 16. And actually, the entity, the man that was in her house, it was a bigger military man, and he wasn't demonic by no means, but he was very unkind and ugly, especially to feminine energies. And he actually came from that. So when it comes to things like that, that's where I tell people, it's not really worth that type of risk.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the crazy thing is they sell them as a child's toy, don't they? That's what I don't quite understand.
Maybe that's why Toys R Us went out of business. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a piece of cardboard and it's a plastic planchette. You could do the same thing with a piece of paper, draw all the numbers and letters out.
Well, we used to do that when I was a
glass. Yeah,
when I was a teenager, we used to do that, make numbers of things and put them around the table and have the glass.
Right.
So yeah.
But again, it's the intent, and I've been in the most extreme houses I've been is where people have used Ouija boards or done occult practices, spells and things like that. And it's the same concept. You wouldn't want to open your door tonight and just leave your door open all night long, and just whoever walked by could come in.
Sure, yeah.
During the middle of the night. So it's the same thing, because when people typically use these Ouija boards, they're using them for thrills and chills. Mm-hmm. And they just want to see if they can get some kind of response. And a lot of times they'll draw in these low-level, malevolent type trickster energies, and they're hard to get rid of. They really are.
Yeah, because you're supposed to close them down properly, aren't you, afterwards?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And keep the planchette away from the board. You're not supposed to store it with the board. Reliably informed anyway. Now, in Memphis, now you had a very big murder years ago with Martin Luther King. Have you ever had any anything from that?
No, I've never been down around the Lorraine Motel. Never had the opportunity to go in there and just tour it or see if I feel energy there. Have you, Kayla?
No, I haven't. That would be interesting to explore one day, though, definitely.
Yeah, because you've got many historical figures from that area, haven't you?
Right.
Anyway, what about you, Juliette? You got anything more to add?
I'll probably think of loads more after this is all finished.
That's usually the problem, yeah. Well,
it's usually the case, isn't it? But the opportunity, like I said to both of you, if you want to find me on, see, Juliette's not a particularly common name, although David does insist on calling me a complete variety and variation on it.
Yeah, we won't go into that.
Yes. If you want to look me up about the hypnotism thing, not a problem at all. If not, I would urge you to look into. It's just interesting subject.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely going to bug you about that.
It'd be like, here's a link. Here's the blog that myself and my dad wrote, and blah blah blah.
I'll tell you what.
I'll read it.
It's helping one another. It's like David said earlier. Every time he does a show, when I join him as a guest presenter, I learn something. I've met some wonderful people who are now friends, and to me it's like, I didn't think of that. I'll have to do that. To me it's like, we may never meet, but through the marvellous world of technology, Christ, I found old. So, listen to this. Before it'd be like, I'll write you a letter, it might get there in about 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's very true.
Make it over.
It is true.
If you ever make it over to Memphis, be sure and get in touch with us, and we'll take you around and show you the sites.
Well, really, Steve and Kate, I wish. On my trips to Memphis that I've had, I wish I'd known you then, because I would have taken you up on it.
Good barbecue, maybe make gumbo, hang out.
But I'll tell you what you need to do. I don't know if you've thought about it, but you two need to get together and write a book about what you do in Memphis.
Actually, I'm working on a guidebook of spirit rescue.
You are doing it? Oh, right. I must be psychic.
Yeah, I plan to publish. I was hoping to publish it this year, but it's slowed down a little bit because of different reasons. But I do plan to get it out by the spring.
Oh, great! Because I'll be definitely interested.
It'll have some tips for people that are intuitive and want to put together an intuitive type investigation team rather than a more equipment based. And to learn the techniques that we use to help spirits cross over. So we'll have all that in there and some personal stories.
Excellent. Oh, well, you have to give me a tip when it's coming out.
Okay.
Because you've got, I'll tell you what, for our listeners out there, you've got a great website where you tell everyone exactly what you're getting up to, and it's a very good website. It's very nice, very well laid out and everything. And what I'll do, I'll put a link to it on the Paranormal Dimensions Facebook page, so anyone wants to find out about it, and you may get a few more visitors.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
But, yeah, it's been great talking to you both. Anyway, thank you so much for sparing the time for coming on.
It's been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's great. I hope you'll come back again, perhaps sometime. And,
love to.
Yeah, great. So, anyway, thank you, Stephen and Kayla. It's been great fun. And thank you, Juliette, once again for helping out.
No, thank you. Absolutely fantastic, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the time's gone.
Well, nice to meet you both.
The time's gone quick again. And you, Stephen and Kayla, thank you very much. It's been great talking to you. And for all our listeners out there, you've been listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm David Young and Juliette as well. And thank you for listening and tune in again next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There's plenty left.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.